So we are 2 days away from Valentine's Day, and everyone's thinking about love. You ever think about love? And we've been married almost 16 years, and still have a lot to learn about love. But we're going some stuff.
Absolutely.
What do you think is one of the main things that you've learned about love in the last 16 years of marriage?
I think that love is an endurance race. I think you get started out like it's a sprint. And you go and you think you've got it figured out. And then you really, get into it with marriage and kids and, things not always going the way that you think, and finances and more kids. And then a few more kids sprinkled on top. And you realize that it really can be challenging. They're not bad in any way, but just hard. But since you realize that it's an endurance race, you realize that you go through seasons and points of it where it's real challenging and real hard, and other points where it's just like you're sprinting again, and you're like, oh wow.
I think I used to think that love was mainly something that I felt. And I think one thing that I've learned is that although you do feel it, love goes so much deeper than what you feel. And the thing about having a fallen, sinful nature is we don't always feel what we are. So in seasons where I don't always quote unquote feel it, I think speaking to that endurance, love is constant, love is steadfast. Whether I have lovely butterflies in my stomach or not.
I think that emotions can be so fickle, and if people really stop and think about it, they realize that, because you're great one moment and not the next. And we've talked about this, that you have to be the boss of your emotions, and you have to kind of boss them around and kind of preach to yourself and say what you know is really true, even if in the moment you're not feeling it. But certainly people talk about stuff like this, and it makes it come across like that you're not happy in marriage, and that you're like, oh, well, no, but it's drudgery, but you push it out, and that's just not true. Like, there's moments of difficulty and challenge, but for the most part, like when you're both seeking the Lord and seeking to love one another, it's glorious and beautiful and joyful.
If I had to pick the number one thing I've learned about love in 16 years of marriage, it's impossible to do it without the Lord.
Yes, absolutely.
And I don't know how, in the context of marriage, I don't know how a marriage survives without Christ.
Yeah, I think that about all kinds of things, and certainly I think that about marriage.
Because love is, God is love, so love is rooted in Him. Like you said, there are different seasons to life. There are different seasons to any marriage. We've had good seasons, we've had harder seasons. What has helped you get through harder seasons of marriage?
I think just learning the concept about seasons and knowing that, that it's not always going to be like that you will walk through hard times, but the old joke of it hasn't come to stay, it's come to pass. So understanding the concepts of seasons and then just really kind of living in the moment. So I guess knowing that things are temporary and that there is something different in the future, but also just really, really living in the moment and finding joy, in the simplicity of a moment and just knowing that there is sufficient grace for this day and that I don't have to worry about tomorrow yet because there's grace enough for this day and all of the challenging aspects of that, and that there can be joy found even in the hardest days, even in the hardest seasons.
Well, I would add to that. I think a big thing I've learned in rough seasons is to learn that our marriage isn't mainly about us, right? So you go through a season and maybe your emotions tell you you're not happy, but your marriage, if your marriage isn't about you, if it's about something greater, then I've got to think deeper than what I feel in that moment, And because we believe marriage is about the gospel, it's about Christ, then in those difficult seasons, I've got to be crucified with Christ, carry my cross and forget the way I feel emotionally and say that this is for the sake of covenant. Now I thought about this earlier. I think covenant is a concept that we largely don't understand.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's the marriage covenant or a covenant in a local church. And I think when we value covenant and we value the weight of a commitment made, that I'm committed to you in covenant for the sake of the gospel. That in those more difficult seasons, I think that's what sustains us. This isn't mainly about me or us. This is mainly about commitment to covenant and faithfulness and showing those aspects of the gospel.
And I think what's really beautiful too is that even though you have two, sinful, very imperfect people, trying to live together, under certain, times things being very, very challenging, is that when you understand the importance of covenant and when you're both chasing after the Lord, and both choosing to really, really love one another, that it really is moments of difficulty, but long seasons of just so much happiness and so much joy. So I think somebody may hear that and be like, "Oh man, I don't want to get married. That sounds awful." But it's really not. It's these intense kind of moments of, "Oh, Jamie's being so difficult." "Oh, Serene's being so challenging." These kinds of things, but it's just long. But that's interwoven with all of this kind of beautiful love story that only the Lord could.
So let's talk about those happier seasons. What have you learned in those seasons where everything goes really, really good. What have we learned in those seasons?
That our marriage can be in a really, really beautiful place, and it be so good, even if there are other aspects of our life that are just in shambles. Like we can be so just in tune and together, and there's just no gaps. We are just totally locked in together,
No.
and like, you know, our finances be in shambles, or just going through a really difficult place, like, you know, with Judah, or, you know, any of the other kids and stuff. Like, so we can be in, the whole world can be kind of, our little world that we've built can be kind of falling down around us, but we can still be completely locked in together.
Yeah.
And that's honestly what I see, like when we go through really, really challenging things. It's
That would be
that,
good.
yes, yeah, that those are the times when you really like it.
So, what do you think about marriage now versus what you thought about marriage 16 years ago? What are some of the things that have changed?
Well, like I said, I think you start out thinking that it's a sprint, that you're going to be able to sprint your whole way through it and really, really live on the height of the intensity of those kind of very early emotions. And you can't, because life just gets in the way, you know. And that's okay, and that no one can ever, I think, be fully ready for marriage. Like, you could think you can read all the books and take all of the premarital counseling stuff, do all the things, and then you get in it and you've really just gotta, like, just learn as you go, and you'll never be fully prepared. And that's the way the Lord wants it. You know, He wants, it's for sanctification. It's for glorifying Him in your weakness as an individual and as a couple and as parents and all of those things.
What do you hope for you and I for our next 16 years?
I think the Lord's taught us a lot about how to communicate with one another, because we're very, very different.
Very
Like, our brains are so different.
Yeah.
The communication is so different.
Yeah.
So many things, and the Lord's taught us so much. So, but we still have, you know, those kind of bumps in the road, those hiccups. I mean, just the other day, you had said something, and it, like, a couple minutes later, it dawned on me, like, what you were really saying, and that I had just been misinterpreting for years. So yeah, so I would like to see us get to where we really, really kind of can hear each other correctly, and to kind of see the Lord continue that good work. And I don't know, I'm looking forward to just kind of the more latter years of marriage. And I mean, 16 years from now, we could possibly be empty nesters, which is insane.
I want gray hair. I really, really, I want gray hair.
You could do it. You'd look great with gray hair. So yeah, so I don't know. It just, there's a verse in Proverbs that says, it's the Proverbs 31, and it says, you know, she looks to the future and laughs. And I love that. And it's about having joy when you look to the future. And that's certainly what I have when I think about the next 16 or 30, 40 years ago. And there's my heaven.
If you could tell people one thing about marriage, what would you tell?
I don't know. I think what we've already said about that, that, you know, it's an endurance race, and that the way you endure is your relationship with the Lord. And just that there's going to be hard moments, but man, it's so worth it, and it's supposed to be joyous and beautiful.
Again, those whole moments are so small, and they're interwoven by such joy.
Yeah.
So, remember, Valentine's, 17 years straight, we're going to be like Valentine's this year.
Yes, absolutely.
I love you.
Love you too.
See ya.